The first signs came from the amateur astronomers. Late one Tuesday evening, hundreds of social media posts started flooding in about strange lights in the sky. At first, people thought it was just another meteor shower, but within hours, everyone knew this was different. The objects weren't falling, they were slowing down and taking position around Earth. Captain Lee watched from the bridge of the US Freedom as massive dark shapes blocked out the stars above. His hands gripped the railing so tight his knuckles turned white. 15 years in the Navy hadn't prepared him for this. The alien ships were like nothing he'd ever seen. They looked like floating mountains made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to eat light. "Sir," his communications officer called out, voice shaking slightly. "We're picking up a transmission. It's being broadcast on every frequency in every language." The message played through the ship's speakers, and Lee felt his blood run cold. The voice was oddly flat, like someone had run it through a computer translator, but the meaning was crystal clear to the governing bodies of Earth. "You have 72 hours to surrender control of your planet to the Drakend Empire. Resistance will result in immediate planetary sterilization. This is not a negotiation." Down in the command center beneath the Pentagon, things were chaos. Military leaders from around the world joined emergency video calls, their faces showing the same mix of fear and determination. The highest-ranking officers had already run the numbers. Earth's combined military might wouldn't even scratch the paint on those alien ships. Someone pulled up satellite imagery showing just how bad things were. 37 massive ships, each one bigger than the largest aircraft carrier ever built, hung in perfect formation around the planet. Their smallest weapon ports were the size of football fields. Every now and then, smaller ships would zip between them like angry wasps around their nests. People around the world reacted differently to the news. Some cities erupted in panic, with traffic jams stretching for miles as people tried to flee to the countryside. Others went quiet, streets empty except for those heading to churches, temples, and mosques. In Tokyo, people quietly lined up at stores to stock up on supplies. In Rio, thousands gathered on the beach, singing and praying together. Captain Lee watched the chaos unfold on his screens while maintaining his position in the South China Sea. His crew was scared, who wouldn't be? But they stayed at their posts, kept doing their jobs. That's what humans do when things get tough. They keep going. "Sir," his radar officer called out, "one of their ships is moving. It's positioning itself directly over Shanghai." The alien vessel descended just low enough to be visible from the ground, a dark mass blocking out the sun, casting a shadow over millions of people. It was a show of force, plain and simple. They wanted Earth to know exactly what they were dealing with. Military bases around the world went into high alert. Fighters were scrambled, missile systems were armed, and submarines dove deep. Everyone knew it was probably useless, but they had to try. They had to show that humanity wouldn't just roll over and give up. Back on the US Freedom, Captain Lee got new orders: maintain position but do not engage. He gathered his crew and gave them the speech he never thought he'd have to give. "I know we're all scared," he told them. "We're facing something bigger than anything in human history. But right now, our job is to stay calm, stay ready, and protect our people. Whatever happens next, we face it together." As the first day under alien ships drew to a close, billions of people looked up at their new reality. The Draknid ships were visible from everywhere, their hulls reflecting the setting sun like artificial stars. Humanity had just over 2 days to find a solution or face extinction, but unknown to both the aliens above and most people below, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something was stirring. Humanity's last, best hope was about to surface. While the world above was gripped by fear, something incredible was happening 5 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean. The secret facility known as Deep Point Alpha had been built 15 years ago, hidden from the public eye and protected by layers of secrecy that went right to the top of every major government. Dr. Chang wasn't thinking about the aliens hovering above the planet. His entire focus was on the massive screen in front of him, showing readings that would have seemed impossible just a decade ago. The project he dedicated his life to was about to face its ultimate test. "The containment field is stable," one of his team members called out from their station. "Mini-singularity is maintaining at exactly 1 micrometer diameter." The scientist's voice held a mix of pride and nervousness. They were literally playing with microscopic black holes, after all. The heart of Project Meteor sat in the center of the facility, a battleship unlike anything humanity had ever built before. Its hull was covered in a material that looked like flowing darkness, developed by studying the strange way light bent around their contained singularities. The ship itself was massive, nearly a kilometer long, but somehow it seemed to fade into the shadows even under the bright facility lights. Workers in high-tech suits scurried around the vessel's base like ants around a fallen tree, making final adjustments and running last-minute checks. They'd been working in shifts around the clock since the aliens arrived, pushing themselves to the limit because they knew what was at stake. Up in the observation deck, Dr. Chang watched as another test sequence completed successfully. He remembered when this all started, back when they thought they were just doing theoretical research into new energy sources. Then they'd had their first breakthrough, finding a way to create and contain microscopic black holes. That's when the military had gotten involved, and everything had changed. "Sir," his assistant called out, "the Joint Chiefs are on their way down. They want to know if we're ready." The young scientist's hands were shaking slightly as he handed over the latest readouts. Dr. Chang looked at the numbers and allowed himself a small smile. They weren't really ready. The ship's systems were barely understood, some of its technology seemed to work almost by accident, and they'd never actually taken it out of the facility. But with alien ships in orbit and humanity's survival on the line, barely working would have to be good enough. The massive underwater doors began to open, letting in the dark Pacific waters. The ship's outer shell instantly adapted, changing its properties to handle the crushing depths. That had been one of their accidental discoveries. The material they'd developed didn't just absorb light, it could change its entire molecular structure in response to external conditions. Teams of engineers and scientists began their final preparations. Some of them had families on the surface, waiting in cities under alien shadows. Others had lost contact with their loved ones when communications started getting patchy. All of them knew that what they were about to do would either save humanity or become a footnote in the story of Earth's last days. The ship's power core hummed to life, the contained singularity providing more energy than all of Earth's power plants combined. Systems that shouldn't exist yet, built on principles that pushed the boundaries of known physics, came online one by one. Warning lights flashed, then turned green as each component passed its final check. Deep beneath the waves, humanity's greatest secret was almost ready to surface. The ship didn't just represent a technological leap, it was a testament to human ingenuity, to our ability to push beyond what seems possible when our backs are against the wall. As Dr. Chan gave the final orders to begin launch preparations, he thought about how this project had started as a dream of clean energy and space exploration. Now it had become something else. A weapon, yes, but also a symbol of hope. In less than 24 hours, their years of secret work would be revealed to both humanity and their unwanted visitors above. The underwater facility buzzed with nervous energy as military leaders from around the world arrived in special submarines. They came in small groups, admirals, generals, and commanders from every major nation, all brought together by the crisis above. Many of them had been enemies just days ago. Now they sat together in the briefing room, their differences forgotten in the face of a threat to all humanity. "Ladies and gentlemen," the facility commander began, his voice steady despite the pressure of the moment. "What you're about to see is beyond classified. Until today, less than 100 people knew this project existed." The lights dimmed and a holographic display flickered to life, showing their secret weapon in all its glory. The gathered military leaders leaned forward in their seats, some gasping, others whispering to each other. The ship looked like a piece of the night sky had been carved out and shaped into a vessel. "We call it the Thunderchild," the commander continued. "It's humanity's first and only Meteor-Class battleship. And in about 2 hours, we're going to take it up there and show our visitors what humans are truly capable of." Questions erupted from the audience. How long had this been hidden? What could it do? Why hadn't they been told? The lead scientist stepped forward, explaining in simple terms how they'd managed to harness the power of microscopic black holes, how the ship's hull could absorb energy weapons, how its systems worked in ways that defied conventional physics. Through the briefing room's massive windows, they could see teams of workers making final preparations. The ship's surface rippled like dark water, occasionally revealing glimpses of the complex machinery underneath. Every few minutes, pulses of energy would travel across its hull, testing systems that most of the world's top scientists would have sworn were impossible. An alarm sounded, not one of warning, but of preparation. The gathered leaders were ushered to an observation deck that overlooked the massive underwater hangar. The facility's roof began to split open, creating a passage straight up to the ocean's surface. Bubbles streamed down from above as the water pressure equalized. "Watch closely," the commander said. "You're about to see something that will change everything." The Thunderchild's engines came to life with a deep hum that resonated through the facility. The sound wasn't like normal engines. It was deeper, almost musical, like the bass note of some cosmic instrument. Lights along the ship's hull pulsed in sequence as its systems powered up. Workers scrambled to clear the area as the massive vessel began to lift off its supports. It moved with impossible grace for something its size, the water around it barely disturbing as it rose. The gathered leaders watched in stunned silence as humanity's greatest achievement prepared for its first real test. As the ship ascended toward the surface, one of the admirals turned to his colleague. "Do you think this will be enough?" he asked quietly. "Do you think we can really stand up to them?" The other man watched the Thunderchild disappear into the passage above, its dark hull swallowing the light from the facility's powerful floodlights. "We have to try," he replied. "And if nothing else, we're about to show those aliens that humanity isn't as helpless as they think." The facility's sensors tracked the ship's progress toward the surface. Everyone held their breath as it passed the crushing depths that would have destroyed any normal vessel. The Thunderchild didn't just survive, it moved faster, more confidently, its revolutionary hull adapting to each new pressure level. On screens throughout the facility, they could see the ship's final approach to the surface. In less than an hour, it would reveal itself to both humanity and the alien fleet above. Nobody knew exactly how the Drachnid would react, but one thing was certain: the game was about to change. The military leaders stood together, watching their last, best hope rise from the depths. Years of secret development, countless billions spent, and more scientific breakthroughs than they could count, it all came down to this moment. Humanity's response to an alien ultimatum was about to surface, and nothing would ever be the same. The Thunderchild broke through the ocean's surface like a rising shadow, water streaming off its impossible hull. On its bridge, Captain Wu stood calmly, though his heart was racing. His crew had trained for months in simulators, but this was different. This was real, and the fate of humanity rested on what they did next. "All systems operational," called out his engineering officer. "Hull integrity at 100%, singularity drive stable." The bridge crew worked with intense focus, each person knowing their role in what was about to become humanity's most important moment. The ship rose higher, its advanced stealth systems making it invisible to both conventional radar and the aliens' scanning technology. Through the bridge's viewing panels, they could see the massive Drachnid ships hanging in the sky like dark clouds. Each alien vessel was bigger than anything humans had ever built, or so they thought. "Weapons systems ready," reported the tactical officer. "Shield generators at full power." The officer's voice held steady, professional, though everyone on the bridge knew they had no idea if their weapons would actually work against alien technology. The entire ship was built on theoretical science pushed to its limits. As they climbed through the atmosphere, Captain Wu thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The years of secret development, the countless tests and failures, and finally, the desperate race to get the ship ready when the aliens arrived. Now it was time to show the Drachnid that they'd picked the wrong planet to threaten. "Taking position between Earth and the alien fleet," announced the navigation officer. The Thunderchild moved with impossible grace for its size, sliding between the alien ships while still cloaked. They positioned themselves directly in front of the Drachnid flagship, a vessel that looked like a floating mountain of dark metal. Captain Wu took a deep breath. "Disengage cloaking systems. Let's introduce ourselves." The Thunderchild appeared as if someone had cut a ship-shaped hole in space. The effect was dramatic. One moment there was nothing, the next, a kilometer-long vessel of pure darkness hung between Earth and its would-be conquerors. The reaction from the alien fleet was immediate and unexpected. The massive Drachnid ships actually moved backward, their formations breaking as they tried to put distance between themselves and the Thunderchild. Emergency signals blasted between their vessels, their language untranslatable but their panic clear. "Sir," called out the communications officer, "we're receiving thousands of transmissions from the alien fleet. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, all bands. I think they're trying to talk to us." On screens around the bridge, they could see the alien ship's weapon ports closing, their defensive shields powering down. It was like watching a group of bullies suddenly realize they'd picked a fight with the wrong person. The bridge crew watched in amazement as the Drachnid flagship's communication systems adjusted to match human frequencies. A voice came through, speaking English with an odd, mechanical tone. "Unknown vessel, please confirm. I'm utilizing singularity containment technology." Captain Wu smiled slightly. "This is the Earth vessel Thunderchild. And yes, we are." There was a long pause before the alien voice returned, now with a noticeable tremor. "Request immediate diplomatic contact. Previous ultimatum rescinded. Repeat, previous ultimatum rescinded." The bridge crew tried to maintain their professional composure, but a few smiles broke through. They'd done it. Without firing a shot, without any actual combat, they'd forced the aliens to back down. The mere sight of the Thunderchild had been enough. "Send word to Surface Command," Captain Wu ordered. "Tell them the Drachnid are ready to talk. And make sure they understand. They'll be talking as equals, not conquerors." As the message was relayed, the captain watched the alien ships continuing to maintain their distance from the Thunderchild. Something about their technology had terrified the Drachnid, and soon they would find out exactly what it was about humanity's achievement that had turned their would-be invaders into nervous neighbors. The conference room aboard the Thunderchild was tense as the human crew waited for their alien visitors. Through the room's viewing panels, they could see a small Drachnid shuttle approaching. What they learned in the next few minutes would explain why the sight of their ship had caused such panic in the alien fleet. The Drachnid representatives entered cautiously. They were tall, their skin a pale blue-gray, wearing what looked like ceremonial armor. The lead alien, who introduced himself as High Commander, moved with the careful precision of someone trying not to show fear. "Your vessel," the High Commander began, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into English. "It should not exist. Your species is too young to have mastered this technology." His three-fingered hand gestured at the walls around them, at the ship's impossible hull. The human delegation, led by Captain Wu and Dr. Chang, exchanged glances. "Perhaps you could explain why our ship concerns you so much," the captain suggested carefully. "We've noticed your rather strong reaction to our technology." The High Commander's large dark eyes blinked slowly. 300 cycles ago, we encountered another civilization, the Arcani. They had developed similar technology to what we see on this ship. We thought, as we did with your world, that we could simply arrive and take what we wanted. The alien's translator couldn't quite capture the emotion in his voice, but his body language spoke of old pain, of memories best left buried. The Arcani used their singularity drives as weapons. They created tears in space itself. Half our fleet, half our entire species, was lost in a single engagement. Dr. Chang leaned forward slightly. "You thought you were the most advanced species in this sector of space," he said. "It wasn't a question." "We were wrong," the High Commander admitted. "The Arcani taught us that technological advancement doesn't always follow predictable patterns. Some species make leaps that defy conventional development. They achieve things that should take millennia in mere decades. We call them the emergent races." The human officials listened intently as the alien continued. "When we saw your ship, saw that you had independently developed the same technology that nearly destroyed us, we knew. Humanity is an emergent race. You are like the Arcani, capable of achievements that bypassed normal evolutionary steps." Captain Wu couldn't help but feel a surge of pride, though he kept his expression neutral. "And this changes your plans for Earth?" The High Commander's translator crackled as he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Changes them? It completely destroys them. We cannot risk engaging a species that has mastered singularity containment. The fact that you achieved this while we were watching your world, it proves how dangerous you could become." One of the human scientists spoke up. But what happened to these Arcani? Why haven't we heard of them? They vanished, the alien replied simply. After our disastrous attempt to conquer them, they simply disappeared. Their worlds were empty when we returned to make peace. Some believe they found a way to move their entire civilization to another dimension. Others think they destroyed themselves with their own technology. We never learned the truth. The room fell quiet as everyone absorbed this information. Humanity hadn't just developed a powerful weapon, they'd accidentally recreated technology that had reshaped the power structure of this part of space centuries ago. So, Captain Wu said finally, I assume this means the invasion is cancelled. The High Commander's translator struggled to convert what might have been a sigh. More than cancelled. My superiors are already preparing diplomatic packages. We would rather have humanity as allies than enemies. Your technology, your potential, it would be foolish to make the same mistake we made with the Arcani. As the meeting continued, Dr. Chang couldn't help but smile slightly. Somewhere in the facility deep under the Pacific, there was a small plaque on the wall. It held the first thing he'd said when they successfully contained a microscopic black hole. Sometimes the biggest leaps forward come from the smallest things. He hadn't known then just how true those words would prove to be. The inspection of the Thunderchild began under careful supervision. The Drachnid engineers moved through the ship's corridors with a mix of professional curiosity and barely hidden fear. Their scanning devices hummed as they studied every detail of humanity's greatest achievement. The containment system, one of the alien engineers said through the translator, it's different from what the Arcana used. Simpler in some ways, but also elegant. He held up a device that showed complex readings of the ship's core. You found a solution they didn't even consider. Dr. Chang watched as the aliens examined their work. He remembered the countless failed attempts, the explosions, the setbacks. It was strange to think that their elegant solution had come from a mistake. A dropped tool that had accidentally created the perfect containment pattern. The tour continued to the bridge, where Captain Wu explained their control systems. The Drachnid officials seemed particularly interested in the way humans had designed interfaces to work with such advanced technology. One of them actually laughed when they realized humans were using modified video game controllers for some of the more complex operations. You adapt existing tools, the High Commander observed. Instead of building everything from scratch, you take what works and improve it. This is unusual. Most species would have tried to create entirely new systems. The ship's main engine room drew the most attention. The contained singularity at its heart pulsed with a deep blue light that shouldn't have been visible at all. The Drachnid engineers spent nearly an hour studying it, their instruments recording every detail. This shouldn't work, one of them finally said. According to everything we know, this combination of technologies should be impossible, and yet, he gestured at the functioning engine. Yet here it is. As they moved through the ship, more differences became apparent. The Drachnid kept finding examples of how humans had taken theoretical physics and turned it into practical technology in ways their species had never considered. Each discovery seemed to make them more nervous. Your weapon systems, another engineer noted, they're not just defensive. You found a way to use the singularity field as both shield and sword. There was a note of respect in the translated voice, but also concern. Dr. Chang nodded. Though we hope we never have to use those capabilities, the Thunderchild was built to protect Earth, not to conquer other worlds. He noticed how the aliens relaxed slightly at these words. The inspection team reached the hull analysis section, where they could study the ship's outer layer up close. The material that looked like floating darkness turned out to be even more advanced than the Drachnid had feared. It wasn't just armor, it was a living thing, constantly adapting, learning, improving itself. This, the High Commander said, touching the hull carefully, this is what truly marks you as an emergent race. You didn't just build a powerful ship. You created something that can evolve. He turned to face the human officials. Do you understand what this means? Captain Wu stepped forward. Why don't you tell us? It means that even if we had tried to fight, we would have failed. Your ship would have learned from each engagement, adapted to our weapons, found new ways to defeat us. Just like your species, it's designed to overcome challenges in unexpected ways. The inspection concluded in the ship's observation deck, with Earth visible below them and the Drachnid fleet maintaining its respectful distance. The High Commander turned to address the human delegation directly. "My report to the Empire will be clear," he said. "Earth must be treated as a sovereign power, not a potential conquest. Your technology, your methods of thinking, they make you too unpredictable, too dangerous to antagonize." He paused, his translator crackling, "and too valuable as potential allies." The humans and aliens stood together, looking out at the stars. In just a few days, everything had changed. Humanity had not only avoided conquest, they had earned the respect of a spacefaring empire. And it all started with a group of scientists who decided to try something that everyone said was impossible. The world watched in stunned silence as the broadcast began. Every TV channel, every streaming service, every radio station carried the same feed. The High Commander of the Drachnid fleet stood beside Earth's representatives on the deck of the Thunderchild, about to make history. "People of Earth," the alien leader's translated voice rang out across the planet. "3 days ago, we came to your world believing we had the right to demand your surrender. We were wrong." The massive view screens behind him showed the Drachnid fleet beginning to move away from Earth orbit. Down on the surface, crowds gathered in city squares, watching on giant screens. In New York, London, Tokyo, and countless other cities, people held their breath. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, pointing at the strange alien speaking from humanity's mysterious new ship. "We have confirmed that humanity has achieved emergent race status," the High Commander continued. "Your technological advancement, particularly demonstrated by this vessel," he gestured at the walls around him, "shows that your species has bypassed normal development patterns." In the underground facility where the Thunderchild was born, the engineers and scientists who had worked on the project for years watched with tears in their eyes. The impossible dream, their countless failures and eventual breakthrough, had just saved humanity without firing a single shot. The High Commander's next words made headlines around the world. "The Drachnid Empire formally recognizes Earth as a sovereign power. We withdraw all demands and offer instead our hand in peaceful cooperation." His translator couldn't quite capture the emotion in his voice, but the meaning was clear. On military bases worldwide, commanders watched as the alien ships moved further away. Missile crews stood down. Fighter pilots climbed out of their cockpits. The tension that had gripped the world's armed forces began to ease for the first time in 3 days. "Your achievement with the Meteor-Class battleship," the alien continued, "proves that humanity possesses not just intelligence, but innovation that defies conventional understanding. You took principles of physics that most species spend millennia struggling with and turned them into working technology in mere decades." The camera panned to show the Thunderchild's hull, its surface rippling like dark water. People watching the broadcast gasped. Nothing humans had ever built looked like this. It was like a piece of the night sky had been shaped into a ship. "We have seen this level of advancement only once before," the High Commander admitted, "in a species called the Arcani. They taught us a costly lesson about underestimating younger civilizations. We will not make the same mistake with humanity." In homes around the world, families hugged each other. Workers in offices cheered. The fear of the past 3 days began to lift, replaced by a new sense of pride and possibility. Humanity hadn't just survived, they had earned respect among the stars. From this day forward, the alien leader declared, "Earth will be marked in our star charts as an emergent world. No hostile action may be taken against your planet or your people. Your ships will be granted free passage through Drachnid space. We offer technology exchange programs, trading partnerships, and diplomatic relations." Captain Wu stepped forward then, his voice steady as he addressed both his fellow humans and the watching aliens. "We accept your offer of peace and cooperation. Earth looks forward to joining the galactic community as equals, not as subjects." The broadcast concluded with images of the Drachnid fleet departing, their massive ships disappearing into hyperspace one by one. They left behind only a small diplomatic vessel, the first step in establishing formal relations between Earth and the stars. As the world celebrated, the Thunderchild remained on guard, a dark sentinel protecting its home. The ship that had changed everything continued its patrol, a reminder to anyone watching that humanity was ready to defend itself, but eager to make friends instead of enemies. In a secure meeting room deep beneath the Pentagon, Earth's top military and scientific leaders gathered to hear the truth. Dr. Chang stood before them, his hands steady as he prepared to reveal what only a handful of people knew, the greatest bluff in human history. The Thunderchild, he began, is not what the Drachnid think it is. He pulled up technical diagrams on the room's displays. Yes, we have achieved singularity containment. Yes, the whole technology is revolutionary. But, he paused, taking a deep breath, it's our only working prototype. And most of its systems are operating at less than 30% of their theoretical capacity. The room erupted in whispers. One general stood up, his face pale. You mean we faced down an alien fleet with an experimental ship that barely works? Dr. Chung nodded. The containment field around our micro-singularity is stable, but we can't actually control it the way the Drachnid believe we can. The weapon systems they were so impressed by? We've never successfully tested them. The adaptive hull? It works, but we don't fully understand how. The Chief of Naval Operations leaned forward. So when their engineers were examining our ship, they saw what they expected to see, Dr. Chung confirmed. They were so convinced we must be an advanced civilization that they interpreted every quirk, every limitation, as deliberate design choices. Their own fear of the Arcani did most of our work for us. On screens around the room, footage played from the Thunderchild's construction, failed tests, explosions, systems that refused to work until they seemingly fixed themselves by accident. The ship wasn't so much built as it was coupled together from breakthrough moments they didn't fully understand. The truth is, Dr. Chang continued, we got lucky, very lucky. The technologies we're working with, they're like trying to read a book written in a language we're just beginning to learn. We know enough to make some things work, but we're years, maybe decades away from true mastery. One of the scientists raised her hand. But the ship works. We've seen it in action. It works, Dr. Chang agreed, but not the way they think it does. Remember when the engineers praised our elegant containment solution? That pattern came from a dropped wrench that accidentally created the perfect resonance frequency. We still don't know why it works so well. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had just joined the galactic community as equals, earned the respect of an advanced alien civilization, and it was all based on their ability to stumble into working solutions they barely understood. So what do we do now? Someone asked. The head of the Joint Chiefs stood up. We learn. Fast. The Drachnid are going to expect us to have more ships like the Thunderchild. They're going to want to exchange technology, to learn from us as much as we learn from them. We need to understand our own achievements before they realize how much we were bluffing. Dr. Chime brought up new diagrams. We've already started reverse engineering our own technology. Every time the ship does something unexpected, we record it, study it, try to understand why it worked. It's like having a textbook from the future. We just need to figure out how to read it. The meeting continued for hours as they planned their next steps. They needed to maintain the illusion of being more advanced than they were, while actually becoming as advanced as the Drachnid thought them to be. It would take everything humanity had, their creativity, their determination, and most importantly, their ability to learn from their own accidents. As the room cleared out, Dr. Chung looked at the image of the Thunderchild on the main screen. The ship that had saved Earth was a miracle of science, but not in the way everyone thought. It was a reminder that sometimes humanity's greatest strength wasn't in knowing all the answers, but in being brave enough to try things that shouldn't work. 6 months after the Drachnid fleet departed, Earth had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. The night sky now held a mix of human satellites and alien communication beacons. Trade ships from distant worlds made regular stops at the new spaceport built in the Sahara Desert. But the biggest changes weren't the ones you could see from the ground. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, the facility that had birthed the Thunderchild had tripled in size. Teams of scientists worked around the clock, studying every aspect of their accidental breakthrough. Each day brought new understanding of the technologies they'd stumbled into. Look at this, one young researcher said to his colleague, pointing at a simulation screen. Remember how we thought the hull's adaptive properties were random? There's actually a pattern. The molecular structure changes follow the same mathematics as coral growth. Little discoveries like this happened almost daily now. In orbit, the Thunderchild maintained its silent watch over Earth. The ship had become a symbol of humanity's new place in the galaxy. Tourist ships from alien worlds would often drift nearby, their passengers hoping to catch a glimpse of the vessel that had changed everything. The Drachnid had kept their word about technology exchange, though not in the way anyone expected. Instead of giving Earth advanced technology directly, they offered trade deals and joint research projects. It was their way of letting humanity develop at its own unique pace while still providing guidance. "They're treating us like gifted students," Dr. Chang explained during a UN briefing. "They know we're capable of making huge leaps forward, but they want us to understand the basics first." He showed slides of the new training facilities where human scientists worked alongside alien instructors. The public knew nothing about the true nature of the Thunderchild's capabilities. As far as they were concerned, humanity had simply proven itself ready for the stars. News channels ran constant stories about breakthroughs in space travel, medical science, and clean energy, all sparked by that first contact. In universities around the world, new departments opened focusing on what they now called emergent physics, the study of how humanity had managed to skip centuries of normal technological development. The Thunderchild's design sparked a revolution in how humans thought about science itself. Captain Wu, still commanding the Thunderchild, had turned down 3 promotion offers. "My place is here," he told his superiors. "This ship isn't just a weapon or a deterrent. It's a promise of what humanity can achieve when we push beyond what we think is possible." The ship's systems continued to surprise its crew. Sometimes they would discover new capabilities that nobody had programmed in, as if the vessel was evolving on its own. Each discovery was carefully documented, studied, and gradually understood, adding to humanity's growing knowledge base. Trade with alien worlds brought new materials, new ideas, and new challenges. Earth's economy boomed as human creativity proved to be a valuable commodity among the stars. Our art, our music, our endless ability to find new solutions to old problems, these became our greatest exports. In schools, children now looked up at the stars with new understanding. They knew that humanity wasn't alone, and more importantly, they knew that humans could achieve anything they set their minds to. The story of the Thunderchild was taught alongside other great moments in human history. Dr. Chang sometimes visited these schools, though he never told the students about the true nature of their breakthrough. Instead, he talked about the importance of curiosity, of being willing to try things that everyone else says are impossible. The universe, he would tell them, doesn't care if you're ready for its secrets. Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to reach out and grab them. And if you don't understand everything right away, well, that's what makes it an adventure. The Thunderchild continued its patrol, its dark hull reflecting the stars. It remained humanity's greatest achievement, but now it represented something more. The beginning of a new chapter in human history, where the impossible had become simply the next challenge to overcome.